On a moonless night in the Pacific, a weapon no larger than a briefcase leaves the deck of an American destroyer. No roar of engines, no missile plume lighting up the sky, just silence. 40 kilometers away, an enemy radar installation blinks offline. Forever. This isn't science fiction. This is the Kamikaze drone, a weapon so cheap, so precise, and so deadly that it's rewriting every rule of modern naval warfare. And the US Navy isn't just testing them anymore, they're deploying them by the thousands. Welcome inside the weapon that has admirals in Beijing losing sleep. The concept isn't new. In 1944, Japanese kamikaze pilots turned their aircraft into guided missiles, sinking dozens of Allied warships in the Pacific. The tactic was devastating, but it required human sacrifice. Fast forward 80 years, technology has finally caught up to the tactic. Loitering munitions, what the media calls kamikaze drones, are unmanned aerial systems designed to hover over a target area, identify threats, and then dive straight into them with explosive precision. Think of it as a missile with patience, a weapon that can wait, watch, and strike at the perfect moment. The US military has been experimenting with these systems since the early 2000s, but it took a war halfway around the world to prove their true potential. Enter the AeroVironment Switchblade, the kamikaze drone that's becoming the US Navy's not-so-secret weapon. The Switchblade comes in two variants: the Switchblade 300, 15 minutes of flight time, a 10-kilometer range, and a warhead designed to take out personnel in light vehicles. Weight? Under 6 pounds. Cost? Around $50,000. Then there's its bigger brother, the Switchblade 600, 40 minutes in the air, range extended to 80 kilometers, and a warhead powerful enough to destroy tanks, armored vehicles, and even small boats. This is the variant the Navy is most interested in. Both systems are tube-launched, meaning they can be deployed from virtually anywhere: a ship's deck, a small boat, even a Marine's backpack. No runway, no catapult, just point, fire, and let the drone do the hunting. Here's what makes them revolutionary. They're not fire-and-forget weapons. They're fire and observe. An operator maintains live video feed throughout the flight. If the target moves, the operator can redirect. If civilians appear, the mission can be aborted mid-flight. That level of precision was impossible with traditional artillery or missiles. But precision is only part of the story. The real advantage? Cost. Let's talk money, because in modern warfare, economics matter as much as firepower. A single Tomahawk cruise missile costs $2 million. An SM-6 anti-air missile? $4 million. A single sortie from an FA-18 Super Hornet, including weapons and fuel, tens of thousands of dollars per hour. A Switchblade 600? $70,000. Total. This changes the calculus of conflict. For the price of one Tomahawk, the Navy can deploy 30 Switchblades, 30 separate targets, 30 opportunities to overwhelm enemy defenses. China and Russia have spent decades developing sophisticated anti-ship missile systems designed to keep American carriers at bay. Hypersonic missiles, long-range cruise missiles, the so-called carrier killer weapons. But here's the problem. Those systems cost millions per shot, and they're designed to intercept million-dollar threats. What happens when the threat costs $50,000, and there are hundreds of them? Traditional naval defense systems weren't built for this. A Phalanx CIWS cannon might shoot down an incoming missile, but engaging dozens of small maneuvering drones simultaneously? That's a nightmare scenario for any ship's captain. This is asymmetrical warfare at sea, and the US Navy is pioneering it before adversaries can. In 2023 and 2024, the US Navy dramatically accelerated its Kamikaze drone program. These aren't just research projects anymore. They're operational weapons. During RIMPAC 2024, the world's largest naval exercise, US destroyers successfully deployed Switchblade drones against simulated enemy vessels. The results were classified, but military analysts noted that the Navy ordered an additional 1,000 units within weeks of the exercise. But the Switchblade isn't the only player. The Navy is also testing the Coyote drone system, originally designed as an anti-drone weapon, now modified to carry offensive payloads. And they're experimenting with something even more radical, modified commercial FPV racing drones. Yes, the same kind of drones you can buy at a hobby shop. Militarized versions, of course, with encrypted communications and specialized warheads. These cost as little as a few $1,000s. They're fast, agile, and nearly impossible to track on radar. The Pentagon calls this approach Replicator, a program designed to field thousands of attritable systems that can be lost in combat without strategic consequence. The goal? Deploy drone swarms so large that no enemy defense system can stop them all. Quantity becomes its own quality. But integrating these systems into a carrier strike group isn't simple. You're adding a completely new layer of capability to a force structure designed around multi-million-dollar aircraft and billion-dollar warships. That means new tactics, new training, and entirely new ways of thinking about naval combat. In 2024, the USS Miguel Keith became the first Navy vessel to successfully integrate Kamikaze drones into its standard weapons loadout. The ship's arsenal now includes not just missiles and torpedoes, but dozens of loitering munitions ready to launch at a moment's notice. And this is just the beginning.
So why the urgency? Why is the Navy investing billions into what are essentially sophisticated flying bombs? 2 words: Taiwan Strait. Military strategists have identified a potential conflict over Taiwan as the most likely scenario for a major naval confrontation in the coming decade. In such a scenario, the U.S. Navy would face the People's Liberation Army Navy, the largest naval force in the world by hull count, along with hundreds of land-based anti-ship missiles positioned along China's coast. Traditional American advantages, carrier air wings, submarine stealth, missile defense, would all be tested to their limits, and the distances involved make logistics a nightmare. This is where kamikaze drones become force multipliers. A single destroyer could carry hundreds of switchblades, enough to saturate coastal defenses, target radar installations, or swarm enemy vessels before they can launch their own weapons. And here's the critical part: they can do it from safe distances. A ship doesn't need to enter the range of shore-based missiles to deploy these drones. They fly themselves to the target. Russia learned this lesson the hard way. In the Black Sea, Ukrainian forces used naval drones, basically waterborne kamikaze weapons, to severely damage Russian warships operating near Crimea. The attacks forced Russia's Black Sea Fleet to retreat from its main base in Sevastopol. An entire fleet displaced by what were essentially remote-controlled boats with explosives. The U.S. Navy studied those engagements intensely, and the conclusion was unanimous. Autonomous and semi-autonomous weapons aren't the future of naval warfare, they're the present. In congressional testimony, Admiral Samuel Paparo, commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, stated that in a conflict scenario, the Navy would need to bring mass to the fight, meaning thousands of affordable, expendable weapons rather than dozens of exquisite ones. Translation: kamikaze drones aren't supplementing traditional weapons, they're becoming primary weapons. The 2025 defense budget allocated over $3 billion for autonomous systems development. Much of that is going directly into naval drone programs. The message from Washington is clear: this technology is a strategic priority.
So what does this mean for the future of naval warfare? First, the era of the untouchable warship is over. No matter how sophisticated your defenses, no matter how advanced your radar systems, you cannot stop 100 drones attacking from multiple vectors simultaneously. Physics won't allow it. The math doesn't work. This fundamentally changes naval doctrine. Ships will need to operate in distributed formations, farther apart, with layered drone defenses of their own. The Navy is already developing counter-drone systems specifically designed to handle swarm attacks. It's an arms race in miniature. attack drones evolving to defeat defensive drones, which evolve to defeat the next generation of attack drones. Second, America's allies are rapidly adopting these systems. The United Kingdom, Japan, Australia, and South Korea have all placed orders for kamikaze drones or are developing their own variants. NATO is integrating them into its naval doctrine. This creates a coalition advantage. In a conflict, Allied forces could deploy thousands of these weapons collectively, an overwhelming force that no adversary could match. But it also means adversaries are developing their own versions. Iran has already fielded kamikaze drones used against shipping in the Persian Gulf. China is investing heavily in autonomous weapons research. Russia, despite its struggles in Ukraine, continues to develop loitering munitions. The genie is out of the bottle. And that raises profound questions. These weapons blur the line between human and machine decision-making. While current systems require a human operator to authorize the final strike, the technology for fully autonomous kamikaze drones already exists. How long before someone decides to remove the human from the loop entirely? And what happens when artificial intelligence starts making life and death decisions at sea? The U.S. military maintains strict policies requiring human oversight of lethal force. But policies can change. And in the chaos of modern combat, with decisions measured in seconds, the pressure to automate will be immense. These are questions the Navy and the world will have to answer soon.
On the decks of American warships today, sailors are training with weapons that didn't exist in operational form 5 years ago. They're learning to fight a kind of war that no Navy in history has ever fought before. The kamikaze drone represents something profound. The weaponization of patience and persistence. These aren't brute force weapons, they're surgical instruments that can wait for the perfect moment, adapt to changing conditions, and strike with devastating precision. For $70,000, the U.S. Navy can deploy a weapon that does what a $1 million missile does, but smarter and often better. This isn't just about technology, it's about strategic philosophy. The expensive, exquisite weapons that dominated late 20th century warfare are giving way to cheap, expendable systems that overwhelm through sheer numbers. It's how Ukraine held off a superpower, and it's how the U.S. Navy plans to maintain dominance in an era of peer competition. The age of the kamikaze drone has arrived, and it's changing everything about how wars at sea will be fought. The question isn't whether this technology will define 21st century naval warfare. It already has. The only question left is, who will master it first? Thanks for watching. If you found this deep dive into modern naval technology valuable, consider subscribing for more military analysis. And let me know in the comments, do you think kamikaze drones make the world safer or more dangerous? I'll see you in the next one.